to day 15 of the 29 days of love. So, if you've been following along, we are picking up speed, gaining momentum. We've been talking about a lot of different things over the last 15 days. And I have to say that yesterday was like one of my favorites. Valentine's Day, I felt like yesterday's just kind of what came through. I loved it. So, having said that, I'm getting so many incredible comments and messages, personal messages, people booking phone calls with me. If you haven't booked a session with me, a strategy session I'd love to hear your love story and then see how to make your love dreams come true, then book a strategy call with me. I'm just so excited that you're here. Thank you for being live or watching the replays. This is like gaining traction. So today I'm going to talk about something. And before I dive into attachment styles, the reason I'm doing this is because I think it's really important. I think that there's a lot of buzzwords thrown around narcissism and attachment styles and borderline personality disorder and bipolar, and we're not equipped to be making these diagnoses, right? I'm a coach, I'm not a therapist. I want to be clear about that. So, what I'm going to be sharing with you is information that I have learned by studying, by reading books, by talking to experts. It's information that I'm sharing and passing along with you, but it's information that's out there readily. If any of these resonate with you deeply and you think that you have a real problem with them, like it's I will always support someone seeking counseling or therapy to go deeper. So I just want to be clear that I'm not trying to play therapist here. I'm reading from information that I've pulled from different books, and I'll make recommendations in the comments for different books that I have used so that you can go do your own research. So I just want to be clear about that. So attachment styles are really important because it really is a beautiful understanding of how we show up in relationship. These were first really brought on the scene back in the 1950s and have been explored further. But there are 4 types of attachment styles. So see if you recognize yourself in any of these. But before I even dive into that, I want to be clear some really good news. The thing about an attachment style is that you can make the conscious effort and decision and you can become securely attached. So if you recognize yourself in one of these as avoidant or anxious, if you see that, all is not lost. You can actually move to a secure attachment. You can do the work and you can understand them and you can make the changes that you need to become securely attached. And I've done this work so that I can be in relationship and be securely attached. And it changes everything. Instead of being so driven by anxiety in a relationship, again, I've explained to you guys my history, my love story. Our love stories have everything to do with this. How we were raised, what we experienced as love growing up has everything to do with what kind of attachment style that we have. So for me, anxious all the way. So my life always looked like stressful. My love life was full of drama and stress and confusion and fear. Oh my God, fear, that pit in your stomach. I haven't heard from him. Where is he? What's he doing? Is this a true anxiety? Now, because like we've talked about my quantum leap in the last 8 years since I was introduced to what love really is, doing the real deep work on myself, real deep work on loving myself, I've moved into a secure attachment style because now I don't have any of that in my relationships. I am calm. It's not anxiety driven. It's peaceful. It's a contentment. And there's a underlying with the secure attachment that says, I know I'm okay no matter what. That's really important. I love myself. I love my life. I'm independent. I'm secure. I know that I am okay no matter what. So if a partner, and this is part of the conscious coupling that I talk about, when we are in a conscious relationship, it's at will. It's kind of like California and at will employment. Like you're both there by choice. You're both there because you choose to love, you choose to show up, you choose to be in relationship with one another. When you're securely attached, if one of the partners decides that they're no longer interested in this relationship or in alignment, it doesn't mean it's not going to hurt. Of course, it's going to hurt, but we're going to be okay. And deep down, we know we're going to be okay. So let's talk about these. There's 4 types of attachment styles. One is secure. Another is avoidant. Another is anxious. And another is called disorganized. And you don't hear about that one quite as often. At least I hadn't heard about that one quite as often. So I'm just going to briefly go through each one of these, see if you identify with any of this. So a secure attachment style is defined by an ability to build healthy, long-lasting relationships. Most of the time, our love stories are very secure, very consistent. We grew up in households where we witnessed and experienced love as a constant. It was not something that was withheld. It was just most people that are secure are like, yeah, I had a great childhood. And so that really does move into adulthood. But again, we can learn to be secure. So signs of a secure attachment style are the ability to regulate your emotions. Remember how we talk about like responding instead of reacting? That's big here. Usually, when we are not securely attached, we don't know how to regulate our emotions. And so we react and we go right back into a habit. And it's like a knee jerk reaction. Maybe we get triggered. That's a good word for it. We get triggered very easily. And then we react before we think, before we give it a pause. Easily trusting others, effective communication skills, ability to seek emotional support, comfortable being alone. It's a big one. Comfortable being in close relationships, the ability to self-reflect in partnerships. This was a really big one for me in becoming secure, is my ability to stop blaming and to be able to self-reflect and say, could that be true? Or question a thought, or look at my own behavior and see where I was being triggered and then course correct. That was a huge one for me. Being easy to connect with, ability to manage conflict well, high self-esteem, and ability to be emotionally available. So those are the signs of secure attachment. And it manifests in relationships when people grow up feeling secure emotionally and physically, and they can engage in the world with others in a healthy way. And then people with secure attachment styles navigate relationships well. They're positive, trusting, and loving to their partners. So it's something for us all to aspire to. Next is an avoidant attachment style. So avoidant, dismissive avoidant, anxious avoidant are really all words for the same insecure attachment style. It is defined by failures to build long-term relationships with others due to an inability to engage in physical and emotional intimacy. So some signs that you might have an avoidant attachment style: if you persistently avoid emotional or physical intimacy, you feel a strong sense of independence, you're uncomfortable expressing your feelings, you're dismissive of others, have a hard time trusting people, feel threatened by anyone who gets too close to you, you spend more time alone than interacting with others, you believe you don't need others in your life, and you have commitment issues. Or perhaps you've been in a relationship with someone that has these tendencies. So that would be signs of an avoidant attachment. And how it manifests in relationships, avoidant attachment might tend to show up in relationships with people that like tend to navigate relationships at an arm's length, keeping their distance, keeping their own sense of like, I can't let you in, I can't let you get too close. The need for emotional intimacy is simply lacking in this type of individual, so romantic relationships are not able to reach any level of depth. While allowing romantic partners to engage with them, they avoid getting emotionally close. Someone that's avoidant doesn't want to get too emotionally close. They have trouble with trusting. It's scary. Intimacy, vulnerability is very, very scary. Conflict is very, very scary. You'll notice that when you want to have a conversation, the words, can we talk or we have to talk, are terrifying to someone that is an avoidant. It's like run, flight or fight, run. So the next one is anxious attachment style. This, if you would have looked this up in the dictionary 10 years ago, you would have seen my picture. I was the absolute poster child for an anxious attachment style in relationships. So I know that if you've been watching and following along, you know my story. And there were so many layers that in my love story that I created as a child that said I wasn't safe alone, that I was, and it created this sense of like terror about being rejected or abandoned, not good enough, not lovable. I mean, it went really deep, but it manifested in this absolute terror of being rejected or abandoned. And so for me personally, this is my story here that I'm about to share with you. Like I would be so wound up, like the beginning of a relationship, absolute euphoria, heady romance. You get giggly, you get the juicy chills all day long. You can't wait to talk to that person. You think about them all the time. Imagine a kid scribbling in a notebook, like, I love yous. And you're just so excited. Like you're Twitter-pated, completely Twitter-pated. And see the world through rose-colored glasses. This is just like diving all in to a relationship and feeling whole, feeling safe, feeling secure, feeling loved. It just feels incredible. And then if it wasn't in alignment and it wasn't a right relationship or healthy, which was the first 50 years of my life was unhealthy relationships, then I would get this hit. And it was an intuitive hit that this isn't right. Like something's out of whack. Something's not in alignment. Something doesn't feel good. Something feels off. Rather than questioning the relationship as a whole and whether it was healthy, whether it was in alignment, I went straight to fear. Like, I'm about to get rejected. I'm about to get abandoned. I must be doing something wrong. And so it became clingy. And I would go through days where if I didn't hear from the person I was with, there was this anxiety in my gut that just made me feel sick. I couldn't enjoy activities. I couldn't go out to lunch with a girlfriend if I hadn't heard from my boyfriend because I was consumed by checking my phone. Or back before there were cell phones, I would want to get home to check my answering machine. Like I didn't want to miss a call. God forbid if I missed the call. And that if they were late, something was wrong. If they felt off, they peeled back. And here's a kicker, guys. So often we anxious attachment styles attract avoidant. So imagine that recipe. You got an anxiously attached person to an avoidant attached person. It's just a recipe for struggling, for suffering. Unless someone takes the stand and can move into secure and recognizes it. So many relationships end because you got anxious and avoidant, and it just creates so much suffering. I would get into relationships with men that were avoidant, and there's a million reasons why this happened, and I go into it deeper and different, like in a healing process, in Life After Toxic Love, in some of my programs, I go into this way deeper, but I would draw in and attract men that were more avoidant. And what do you think that did to my anxious attachment? It just sent me spiraling. It was terrifying to me. So I'll get back into this, but I just wanted to share a little bit because I can really relate to that. I know what that feels like. So anxiously attached is characterized by fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. Those are the top two things. Depending on a partner for validation and emotional support and regulation. If I went through the day and didn't hear from my person and I was so scared and I had that anxiety, the minute the phone rang, the minute we reconnected, my nervous system calmed down. I felt okay. So, depending on someone for emotional regulation and codependent tendencies. So, some signs that you might have anxious attachment style are clingy tendencies. They pull back, you move forward, you move in. What's wrong? Are you okay? Clingy, clingy, clingy. Highly sensitive to criticism, big time. Need for approval from others, jealous tendencies, difficulty being alone, low self-esteem, feeling unworthy of love, intense fear of rejection, significant fear of abandonment, and difficulty trusting others. I had all of it. All of it. It was miserable. And people with anxious attachment styles normally feel unworthy of love and need constant reassurance from their partners. Constant, daily, hourly reassurance from their partners. They often blame themselves for challenges in the relationship and can exhibit frequent and intense jealousy or distrust due to poor self-esteem. And I'm going to put a link in the comments to this article that I'm reading this from so that you guys have access to the resources. And then finally, it says they blame themselves for challenges in the relationship, can exhibit frequent and intense jealousy or distrust due to poor self-esteem. Ultimately, there's a deep-rooted fear of being abandoned, rejected, and alone. Those fears typically express themselves in those ways. And then finally, this one I had not heard about as much, but it's still very relevant. It's a disorganized attachment style. And this is called anxious disorganized attachment, is defined as having extremely inconsistent behavior and difficulty trusting others. How it develops, most of the time it's childhood trauma, neglect or abuse, fear of their parents, a sense of safety. Their sense of safety has been disrupted. Signs that of a disorganized attachment style are fear of rejection, inability to regulate emotions, contradictory behaviors, high levels of anxiety, difficulty trusting others, and signs of both avoidant and anxious attachment styles. This type can be associated with like mood disorders sometimes because it shows up as very inconsistent, very confusing. So oftentimes it's like it could be this attachment style, but it's labeled something different. And how it manifests in relationships, people with disorganized attachment styles tend to have unpredictable and confusing behavior. They alternate between being aloof and independent and being clingy and emotional. They are desperately seeking love. They also push their partners away because of fear of love. And they believe that they'll always be rejected, but they don't avoid emotional intimacy. They fear it, but they also consistently seek it out, only to reject it again. It's like a cycle that can't be broken. And they perceive their partners as unpredictable, and they themselves behave in unpredictable ways within the relationship as they continue to wrestle between the need for security and fear. So those are the four. And like I said, I will put links to what I read and some books and some resources, because the beautiful part about this, the best news in the world for me, was knowing that I wasn't locked into that, knowing that I could change it, that there was some control in this for me, that I could work on becoming secure. Once I really saw what anxiously attached looked like, when I got triggered, I was able to call it out as for what it was. Oh, that's literally my anxious attachment rearing up its head. I'm fearing rejection right now or abandonment. I'm not feeling solid in myself. And I could remind myself that all was well, that I was perfectly fine, that I would be perfectly fine no matter what, that if a relationship ended, it wasn't right. It wasn't not aligned. And this is what will lead you into healthier relationships. The more securely attached you are, of course, then you're going to seek out partners that are more securely attached. Or you're at least, by doing your work, going to be able to feel out of alignment, and you're going to be able to sense when it's not right, when something's not right. And it doesn't mean that you can't be securely attached and that you might not attract someone that has one of these attachment styles and that the relationship won't work. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means that you don't lose your footing anymore. You stay secure. And of course, ideally, two secures come together, or two people come together, they work on themselves, and they both become securely attached. One thing that a securely attached person can do is, if they attract an anxiously attached person, they have compassion, they have patience, they have understanding, they have the tools and the mindset to help their partner become secure. They know what triggers are, and they know how to be soothing and love on that person. So this is really a great conversation. It is an incredibly wonderful way to up level in your relationships, in yourself, and then attract better relationships or move them up to next level love. So today was a little bit more clinical and a little bit more in depth, but thank you for joining me. I hope it was helpful. If it was, leave me a comment, leave me a message, share what you're feeling. Tomorrow I'll be back again at noon. Tomorrow is, oh my gosh, is it Friday already? So Pacific Standard Time at noon. And I will see you then. All right, guys. If you want more information, sorry, I was just about to sign off. Will you check out my website? Because there's so much about love there that might be helpful. And book a call if you want a strategy session. All right, sending you all my love, and I'll see you tomorrow.